Welcome, everybody. This is Patrick Snow, host of the Patrick and Mary Unstoppable Author Interview Series, where we interview inspiring authors, speakers, coaches, and consultants from all over the world to help you get what we all want: more time, more money, more freedom, more health, more love, and more happiness in life. And today you're going to get a whole lot more adventure, more freedom, and more health. Our guest today is Caren Ware. Her book is titled Finding Fit: What Running Through an Arduous Childhood and a Remote Marathon on Every Continent Can Help You Find. I read much of this book yesterday. It's absolutely spectacular. I'm going to read you her bio start to finish because it's so impressive, and I want you to get a full understanding of who she is. So Caren Ware makes running and active outdoor living her profession. It all started in elementary school with a jogathon and reaching the summit of Mount Whitney at the age of 12. She is a USA track and field level 2 coach, a two-time Masters track and field world champion. She holds 17 USA track and field Masters national championship titles in the heptathlon, pentathlon, hurdles, steeplechase, long jump, triple jump, and high jump. She earned her Bachelor's of Science degree in Education and Camp Recreation Administration from Biola University. She's also earned a master's degree in Public Administration from Cal State San Bernardino. She's worked as a coordinator, supervisor, superintendent, acting director of Parks and Recreation, and a camp activities director. She owns and operates It's About Time, a professional RFID chip race timing company. She also stages her own themed running events, Caren Ware Events, the something for everybody and everybody races. She launched Where in the World Travel Adventure Travel, so you can experience running adventures that cares about other cultures. She's creative, creating a healthy protein snack, proceeds to help villages in Nepal during the monsoon seasons, providing schooling, clothing, food, hope, health, and opportunities. She's raised 2 children of her own and helped 5 inner city youth get through college. She loves culture and people and has taken in countless Japanese, Tahitian, and Romanian exchange students. Caren assists villagers and their families who guide up Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa, and the Nepalese Everest Base Camp guides, porters, Sherpas in the Himalayas of Nepal. She is working at turning this into Where in the World Foundation. Caren Ware has a heart-shaped heart and a zeal for life and adventure. As a gifted storyteller and writer, she is a sought-after author, professional keynote speaker for running clubs, races, and corporate events and private events. Her website, if you want to follow along online, is Caren with a C, carenwareevents.com. Again, carenwareevents.com. So all the way from Southern California, please join me in welcoming Miss Caren Ware.
Wow, that's a huge accolade. And honestly, all in my heart, I feel like I'm just one of you. And my races I put on I call them the something for everybody races. And we are everybody. So thank you for welcoming me with the accolades. And look what running can do. Look what I did with just one activity and enhancing my life with it. So
Well, I'm so excited to dive in. 7 continents, 7 marathons, and we're going to talk later about that. But that is pretty spectacular to do a marathon, let alone the logistical travels. So just really quick, what gave the idea to do a marathon in every continent? And first off, how many marathons have you done in your life? And then what was the inspiration behind doing a marathon in every continent?
So I think you'll find in the chapters that it started early on, that running clicked with me at a school jogathon when I had the opportunity to end up running the most laps in the affirmation that gave me. And so I knew that running would take me places, but just running in circles without seeing and meeting people was something different. And you mentioned that I own a timing company that puts on races, and I was in inner city LA in a big park called Griffith Park. And these young, very young boys. One came out from behind the bushes and ran a 5K and won second overall between two Kenyans that were training for the Olympics, back in the day. And then I saw him dive out into the bushes and another come out with the same shoes, same tattered shorts, and run the 10K. And so I ended up having someone go find them, search them out and talk to them and tell them if they come help me set up for races, I would sponsor them by giving them shoes and shirts and shorts. And that ensued into those becoming what I call my Belmont Boys. There's a chapter in the book called the Belmont Boys, and a miracle is brewing. I got them, I raised them.
We're going to talk about the Belmont Boys in a little
bit.
We're
going to talk about them, but the reason I went and ran a marathon every continent, I decided to do a remote marathon. I wanted to find people within cultures, cultures within continents, and meet them and run into them and see if there's a way for us to meet their needs. So I didn't just do every continent. I did every continent as remote as I could do. I did the Quechuas in the Andes Mountains and in the Galapagos Islands and the Aborigines in the Outback. And someone says, you said it too, Antarctica's a continent. And I got on a ship and went across the roughest ocean in the world and went to Antarctica. And they said, well, what culture is there? There's Russians and there's people within those ships that's the only jobs they can get on this earth. So there's a story out there, and it's the book.
So we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about that. How many marathons in total?
So I actually ran on the U.S. track team as a multi-event athlete, which I think takes more training, more athleticism, whereas a marathon is a endurance stunt that you have to train your body for. It's a very different. So I've only run about 25, 30 marathons, but I wanted to make sure that they were choice ones. And I ran them because everyone's interested in the endurance, because everybody out there can teach itself to put one step in front of the other and then just bring the distance, longer and longer or shorter and shorter. And you can run as far or fast or slow or recreationally or competitive as you want. And that's what's the neat thing about running, is it really does cover the full gamut of all of our personalities out there.
How many countries have you been to in your life?
I'm a traveler, and I'm a traveler because my heart travels with the people. And I think that came from, and you'll find in the book, it came from the heart of a mom that didn't get the opportunity to travel, but her heart was about the people. And so I feel like I'm the living book that she never got to write. And when I'm out there, I'm just saying in my heart, hey, look at these, look at the people I met, look at the culture that's here. And I think we have in a lifetime, I don't think you can ever go to every single place there is on earth, which is a neat opportunity. A neat opportunity for our time and period of history is that we can get there faster, quicker than any other time as far as, flight and stuff. So I can't even answer that question. Lots. Yeah. And that means that there's lots of sequels. There's another book coming out after Finding Fit with all those.
Very good. Well, we're going to dive in. We got so many things to talk about. I'm going to try to get all this in. I can't wait to hear more. But first, let's talk about, how did we originally meet? Somebody introduced us. All of a sudden, you were on a plane to Maui for another race you were doing here. You came over to my house. You sat on the living room couch. We talked story back and forth, as we say in Hawaii here. But how did we connect? I don't remember who it was and when that was.
So I actually knew, I knew that I'm a person, I explained, I'm an energetic person. That's why I like to throw my energy into running. And I'm a person of 10,000 words where 1,000 more really choice, but I have a heart that can write. And so I just wanted to, it's really hard to hear from people like us, because we never take the time to stop long enough to get those amazing words on paper. And so I wrote a story, and each one of my chapters is a life story in itself. I really poured a lot into each chapter, and it's taken me a decade almost to write the book. And I tell people it's a lifetime to live it. I didn't write this book, life did. And so I wrote chapters as life is. Life isn't always down and out. It isn't always up and summiting, but it's a process of, taking us through all those things. So I had this first story, and it's my second chapter in the book, called The Will to Survive. And my daughter, I had her as my, she was in college at the time, as my staff to time an event on Maui, and you came up as a keynote speaker, and I was searching for who's written a book, who's been successful at it. And of course, I think Mary said she found your card stuck because you at the time to in creating your own destiny.
So you
Put
just found me
cards.
on you just found me on the internet in Maui?
Yes, I just searched for who's been successful and has written a book, start to finish, and got it out there. And that's who I want to just get in behind them and have them train me. And that's how I found it.
Wow, wow. Well, the book title I absolutely love, Finding Fit. And I'm going to read the audience a paragraph from the preface because Finding Fit has so many different meanings. And I want you to think about and share why this title. So, Finding Fit is the meaning of sculpting new narratives that provide a sense of coherence around everything sad and wonderful in our lives. Finding fit means looking and searching and finally reclaiming what was once lost in us. Finding we fit by finding how we fit is a formula that's energized and rewarding direction. Purposing our lives is to be up and running is the healthiest way to live. Not down, but up. Not lost, but found. Not broken, but running. Working properly and in shape. Putting all those puzzle pieces together to know you fit perfectly. This is when we are the healthiest and living the best of the journey that is quite worth it. So finding fit is that kind of journey. So please share the inspiration behind that title. I love the duality of it, all of the different meanings. It's not just finding yourself fit, but it's finding the world, it's finding everything. So tell us that about this title.
So I think, I set out on a pursuit to run a marathon on every continent. I also had a pursuit to stand on the podium as a world-class athlete. It didn't happen until I was a master's athlete. So don't give up on yourself, everybody out there. There's all kinds of sports out there. And I really was surprised and amazed and learned so much by going through the whole U.S. Masters, running on their team. Traveled to more countries probably as a master's athlete. But anyway, the inspiration in this was that sports and activity and even outdoor activity are life enhancers. And it doesn't matter if you end up on a podium or you are an athlete or world class, anybody out there can add to their life in just simple ways by adding activity in there. And we really are out there to find who we are from the inside out. And so and I've had people tell me, I've read your book. I'm not an athlete. I'm not even a runner. And I got so much out of it because the parallels that we can learn from any sport or anybody's life or anybody's ups and downs and pursuits, it can be learned and mastered. And so my hope and encouragement is to go out and find something that adds to your life. It doesn't have to be running.
Wow, I love it. I also love the chapter Racing Against the Setting Sun. I mean, that chapter is about you trying to, I guess, finish a race before dark. But the other duality about that chapter is that also can serve as all of our lives. We're put on this earth for 70, 80, 90, 100 years if we're lucky. And we have this time at the end of our life where we expire. And we're trying to get in as much adventure and love and journeying and culture that we can before that. So talk about this chapter, Racing Against the Setting Sun. Where were you? Was it a race or were you just out jogging? How did you find your way back in the dark? What was your purpose of this chapter?
So I actually, in fact, I'm in a what I call a base camp cabin. I'm in a cabin at Green Valley Lake at almost 7,000 feet in the San Bernardino Mountains. You may hear a little background noise, and I also see a dog that just jumped off your couch in the back of Patrick's. But I have my new lab, Champion, and I hear him munching on food in here, and he's wandering back and forth. So if you hear background noise, it's a dog, and at the time that I started writing or thinking about putting this book and doing the 7 continents for my inner city kids to show them that there's a world out there and there's cultures, and I was inspiring them and getting them into college. I lived in Lake Arrowhead, and the race to get all the race timing equipment and get to all these races was was amping up because we were hitting a bad recession in the economy in 2009, 2010. And I thought, oh my gosh, I got to get to this race. I got to get to that. And I realized that I was trying to beat something in life that was unbeatable. You can't race against the setting sun. And if you'll see in the chapters of Finding Fit, in the beautiful resolution as I went through things, is that you don't need to race a setting sun. You need to enjoy it as a teammate and know that it's a partner out there. It's not something that you have to beat. It's something that you get to enjoy and overcome and stuff. So at that point in my life, when I wrote that prelude, I was at the darkest position imaginable. I never thought that I would ever go through a divorce. To me, it filled my life with a loss that I think parallels to the loss that you feel when you lose a loved one. And I didn't know where to go. It was as dark could get, and the black as black could be. And the sun set on me. And so that was where I thought, this is where I must take my life and put light in it. So that was that chapter.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. Tell us a bit about your youth. I love that Nietzsche quote that says, "That which does not kill you strengthens you." And the story about you running back and forth from school up the hill to your house to check on your mother, the jogathon. Talk about your relationship with your mother. Talk about that jogathon. Talk about maybe some of the adversities that have led you to be such a strong person you are today.
So the chapter after The Will to Survive, which is a neat chapter about my marriage and our first dog. And I have a lot of chapters in there that relate to things that happen in life and the joys of relationships and what you learn from your own animals and stuff like that. But I wanted people to know who I was and who I am and the kid behind us, because there's a kid behind all of us. And there's there's a lot of us that have a kid in us or a voice in us that has to, go and find other things and add to them. And I wanted to have people know, rather than come to running races I put on or things like that, to know who the child is. And the child, my dad was a really driven, very successful, very acclaimed, very good professional person. And he actually went and summited Mount Whitney with a bunch of his colleagues and came back with a backpack and a tan and the pictures. And I was a young girl, and I just pestered the heart out of him and said, please let me go. Please let me go. Please let me. And finally he conceded. And the trip wasn't what I expected, because it had a personality from him that didn't really tend to our needs, but it was exactly what I needed in my heart to know, that there's summits out there and there's high peaks, and that by our own energy and our own walking one step in front of the other, we can get up to those summits and look down on high places. So so all the adventures in the chapters that I take you through, I really wanted you to get to know my mom, because she was in the process of writing a book that she never got to write. And I have a voice for her. And it was a arduous childhood. When you said I ran home every day, I was the trophy child in our family. I was the one that was put in the position to do well in school, get good grades, win sports awards, even though I wasn't a good athlete, but I was so determined and needed to be, that I would just practice, practice, practice. And yet at the same time, when I hit junior high, our school was only a few blocks, but hilly blocks away from our home. My mom was sliding into emotionally just letting go of life. And so I would, every class, in between class, race home and run to the house and prop her up and tell her how much I loved her. And for my whole almost 8th grade year, tried to keep her alive. So that was the gist of that story. And I think, I think that the title of that is, when it gets this intense. So I don't even know how to, it's a hard thing to write, and it's a better thing to have people read in it. But I was put in the position that my mom finally decided to just, stop having feelings and emotions and everything that she went through. And I came home one day and she looked blue around the lips and she said, I think I have to go to the doctor. And I go, that sounds good. That sounds good, Mom. And she said, you're going to have to drive. I was 13 years old. So you're going to read about that story of what it was like to try to get her to help and get help for her. And she had a lung collapse and stopped breathing in the parking lot when I did get her to the doctors. And that whole experience of losing life. But then the things that she taught me, and as she went through life. Anyway, I'm gonna let you ask more questions. So
yeah. So there's also another story in the book that we're going to get to, but you wrote in the book, quote, I am the book never got to write. And I just feel and want you to know your mother must be so proud of you for writing this book for the both of you. But you have a chapter in the book about an earthquake, a sinking boat with your mother. Tell us about the sinking boat. That sounds pretty intriguing.
So that's what I'm going to kind of roll into. But I wrote another chapter too because my mom was an amazing woman that was born out of wedlock, and she was raised by not back then there wasn't really foster care, but there was just like child homes, or someone would take in a kid for $5 a month or whatever. And her mom was a young teen, and she went on to work as a waitress and never came back to get my mom until she was 11 years old. And so these two ladies from a Baptist church would open the back gate and let my mom go into the Baptist church, and the Baptist church raised her. And my mom had a beautiful heart from the inside out. We think that she was half Cree Indian, half breed Indian, and back then that was so. Those are all these strikes against her that would, put her as, someone that didn't amount to something. So she named me Caren with the C, so I'd be a caring person, and also changed the name so that I would have to talk to people by telling them, no, I'm sorry, it's Caren with the C, not with the K, and look people in the eye. And it worked. And that's why I have the timing company, it's ITZ. It's about time, a one-off, where it's good for us to be one-off and have to explain ourselves and to realize that we are amazingly beautiful because we're one-off. So my mom, I got a phone call when I was married, and the hospital said, your mom needs to have a ride home. And I said, my mom's in the hospital? And they said, yes, she had surgery, and you'll need to come get her and take her home. At the time, she was working in LA and had rented a fishing boat, not a yacht, but a fishing boat from a gentleman that thought he was going to be able to pay his yacht dock fees if he could catch fish, but he didn't know how to fish. And so to help save his dock lease, he put a thing out there to rent to be on this fishing boat. So she was working it as a single divorcee, and when the chapter about the foundation of the house cracking, she put the house up for sale, and we had a rare earthquake hit in Whittier, and you have to read all about that. But so I went to pick her up, and it was at St. John's Hospital. And they said she wasn't on the list. And I said, well, the hospital that called me, and they looked again, they go, oh no, she's over at John Wayne Cancer Institute. And I had no idea she had cancer. And so I went in, and she'd been there for a week, and I picked her up, and she just kind of gave me the shrudge. And so I had never been to her fishing boat. And so I said, well, this will be the first time. She goes, I actually really like it. It puts me outside in the salt air, and it lulls me to sleep. And we walked out on the dock, and she stopped, and she looked down, and she patted me to sit next to her on the dock and flip my feet over. And I said, what are we doing, Mom? And she goes, that's my boat. And the ropes were going down, and we looked down, and while she's in the hospital, the boat had sank in the harbor with all her earthly belongings on it. And she reached over and she squeezed my hand, and she just started to laugh. And it's the second time that I've seen her laugh in life that heartily. And the first time was that incident I just told you about, where I drove her to the hospital, her lung collapsed. She would have died that day had she not all of a sudden decided that there was something funny, and a laugh evoked out when she had that left in her life. It opened up her lungs and she was able to start breathing. And she reads her and she goes, I can't take any of it with me. All I can take is the lines that I've written on the lives of you children. And I knew that. My mom loved people and places and things and not, not anything else. Hey, I also excited. I just saw someone jump on your Zoom and I recognize a face, and he is actually a guide from Kilimanjaro, Africa. Welcome, Epa. And as we get into the chapters on Africa, you're going to actually meet the real man and the real family that we support there. Thank you for joining us. Okay, keep going. Ask me more questions.
Thank you so much.
Dive into that. Let's talk about, I want to, get a little bit about all the different marathons. Your first marathon was the LA Marathon. And then that set you on this journey of doing these marathons all over the world. So let's go to Kilimanjaro. Talk about that experience.
Okay, and then I'll tell you about, there's a first for everything, the LA Marathon. I really want you guys out there to read it because I wasn't a marathoner. I knew nothing about it. In fact, when I first ran my first road race, I came off the track. I took off with the lead runners and then looked around and couldn't keep up the cardio because I'm an 800-meter runner. And I thought, how far are they running? And I thought 10K sounded better than a 5K because it had the word 10 in it. I had no idea it was 6.2 miles. And so as the endurance ran on, I think the second mile, I was like huffing. The third mile, I think I actually honestly threw up. The fourth mile, I was walking, and I came in that first road race I did almost deadpan last. And so same with first for everything in the marathon. I want you guys to read through it because I had no clue. I didn't know to hydrate myself. I didn't know to feed. So you're going to learn a lot in this book, Finding Fit, because I hope to put life tidbits in there, and I hope to encourage us to try things, for the first time. So by the time I got to Africa, I actually was, I had gone through a divorce I didn't expect. And I have a chapter in there called Touching the Void. I've been told by some, the literary world, that's one of the best written chapters that they've ever seen on an allegory for what the pain and what the process of divorce does. But I knew I still had these continent marathons to run. And I had Africa in front of me. And I was living in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I was working 3 jobs to keep my kids all in college. And I wanted to go on these remote marathons by earning my way there like my inner city Belmont boys had to, not from the proceeds from my business, but working in a coffee shop and coaching track and delivering packages during Christmas for UPS. So that's how I earned my way to Africa. And I felt that. It took a long time. It took me a couple of years to get the money to go. And as I was flying there through Amsterdam, I didn't know in traveling that you have to tell them that you're traveling. So I went to use my ATM and the accounts locked me out in other situations. And I had $20 in my pocket. And when I landed in Africa, that's all I had I think I was there for 2 solid weeks, and I was going up Kilimanjaro. Luckily, the trip was paid for, but the food wasn't. But it put my heart and me in the same situation that many are in Africa. They are 1 day away from not being able to be fed, or 2 days away from not being fed. And so it gave, you'll see a lot of the stories in there that I helped gather up all of our extra lunches on our tour, and to the heart of the guard that was supposed to keep needy kids away, that were in a ravine, that were hoping that they could get our leftover lunches. You'll read that, whole story. Epa, who is on here from Kilimanjaro, was amazing. And the experience of not just going and running a marathon or going somewhere is the excuse to get there. Once you get there, please make sure you look around, you touch and feel and get to know the people. And the 2 major things in Tanzania and Africa where this Kilimanjaro Marathon was, is you have the Serengeti, you have the wildlife. It was teeming like that cartoon, The Lion King. That's not fake that there's that many animals in Africa. And then there's this looming mountain that's 20,000 feet in the middle of Africa called Kilimanjaro that actually has glacier on it and snow and can get temperatures of -20, -22 on the top. And you have to have Antarctica gear up there. So Epa is a guide on that mountain, and he can introduce himself and tell you what it was like to, meet us. And he said, you have a heart. And so you're going to find when you read about climbing Kilimanjaro and running the Kilimanjaro Marathon, to me was about meeting the porters and finding out who they were and who their families were and what their needs were. And Epa could feel that as a guide and feel that I had the love for his villages. And I came back with pennies in my pocket. That $20 bill, you'll read about where it went when I was in Africa. And said, we're a rich nation here. I'm just going to start something that gives back. So I started a race called Santa Claus with a Cause. And my cause was to help Epa and his family. His son developed diabetes, and he was trekking, I think he said something close to 20K every 3 days to go get medicine and a machine to test him. And he also had the desire to help his family by not just being a guide, but by going to school. And so that's how I started the Caren Ware events. The very first one was Santa Claus with a Cause, and Epa was my cause. And I thought, we're a rich nation and we can figure out a way. My first race, I think I had less than 200 people come. We dressed up in Santa suits, and to help with the permit costs, we ran around on sidewalks and obeyed the stop signs, which was part of the race. Because if you got stopped at a street stop, it was like, okay, oh, your competition just left, you got to catch up. And we were able to gather just to me a very small amount of proceeds, but to them it was huge. And for Epa, it got him through the first semester of school, then the next semester of school. And so I'm proud to say we have a picture of Epa in a graduation cap, and he graduated with a degree. So Epa, tell us a little bit about you.
You know what? We're gonna hold that over for the Q&A.
Together? Okay.
We're going to do a Q&A at the end, and I can't wait to hear about Epa, and we're thrilled that we've got people from all areas of the world joining us. You mentioned that Touching the Void chapter, and you mentioned divorce. I read that, and it was one of the favorite chapters that I've read. And you've been to Kilimanjaro, run a marathon there. You've been to Mount Everest, and you've done a marathon there. I want to learn more about that Everest experience, but my wife and I hike a bunch in Maui, and people here think that the beaches are epic, and they certainly are, but people don't know that there's 200 or 300 hiking trails here that are spectacular, and you get to access them every single day of the year because of the warm temperatures. So I always tell my wife that, hey, look, we made it to the top of the mountain. Now we got to be extra careful on the way down. And, when people climb Everest or other mountains, they typically make it to the top, but they die on the way down. So share us that analogy about touching the void when one hiker gets hurt, how they strap on, oftentimes what happens, because if one gets hurt, you don't want that one to die and then the partner to die. And then talk about how that ties into the whole concept of divorce.
So Touching the Void was it's an epic climbing story that they actually made a movie about it. But two gentlemen summited peak in South America that, a first ascent. And as they were getting off the climb, turning around, one of the climbers punched through a cornice. The cornice overhangs the lip, and crashed through to a rock and broke his leg in half. And the other climber took a look at him, and they knew, you're dead. You're dead with an injury that bad, that high on the mountain. And they had to do something.
There's no way to get him down. There's no way to get him down.
So the only way to get him down is just to lower him straight. They can't go down any route. So he cooked them on, and they had a storm come in, and he's just lowering them down. And then what they do is they lower him down, then the other climber has to climb down to him, lower down to him, and keep going as fast as they can. The one being lowered with a broken leg said he was screaming out in pain because the other climber was just not being sensitive to, his injury or his pain, but he couldn't. And so the allegory of a broken marriage, whether it be a relationship that got involved there, or perception of something, or lack of mistrust, or something big gets broken, and then divorce happens rapidly. And it's a rapid descent where someone's trying to get out of the situation, off the mountain, in a scary way on both parts. The partners are injured, and it was glorious and amazing, and everything that they depended on each other and worked with each other so well to get to that summit point. So I wanted to use that as my allegory for divorce, because that's what divorce, felt like to me. The epic part of this climbing situation, one of the most epic climbing situations out there, is as he was lowering him, all of a sudden the climber with the broken leg feels himself going faster, 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 and he's hanging off the cliff, free hanging, free dangling. And they get to the end of the rope, and the belayer needs him to unclip so he can climb down. Well, he can't. He's hanging off the rope, and they're in this tug of war, this situation where it's stalemate, and the storm overtakes them. And it's a matter of, and what happens too is, even though he's dug in the snow, the belayer, he's getting pulled inch by inch by inch. And eventually he'll get pulled out of his anchor. And the other guy has a system on him called a pressic. It's a rope a little teeny rope that you can actually, it's a safety rope, tie around a rope, cinch it, and then Jumar yourself back up. And you need two of them. He got one on, and then he was trying to get the other one, and his hands were starting to freeze, and he got his teeth on it, and it dropped. So now he's just dangling in the air. And I felt like, in divorce, you're trying to make it work, and you're trying to make it not work. And the belayer was put in a situation where both die, and he had to cut the rope loose. So all of a sudden the dangling, injured climber feels himself go. And he ends up free falling, I think a couple hundred feet into a crevasse. And the other climber had to dig a hole and white out so feel that allegory, feel that situation. And the other climber then had to get himself, when the storm passed, back down to their camp. The climber that went into the crevasse lived through the fall. So now he has a situation is, how does he get out of this situation? And that climber in that crevasse was me in that divorce. And he had to end up doing something that doesn't feel the right thing to do. He had to climb deeper into his hole before he could find a way out to get out onto the glacier. And that's what I found in a lot of situations in life. You got to go deeper than you probably want to go. But there is a core of us that goes with us, and that we are not the cause of our situations, but we can be actually help ourselves the best if we do go deeper and find a better way out. And he was able to get out on the glacier and crawl himself across that glacier for days with that broken leg, get to the camp. But by the time he got to the camp, the other climber had packed it all up and was actually on a horse about to leave. He couldn't take all the equipment with us, and he had burned all the possessions of his other partner. And so that's also what happens in divorce, is you might survive it, but then you feel like everything that was of value to you got burned and taken. And it took years for those two climbers to reconcile and be able to forgive the situation. But it is forgivable, and that's touching the void. And that was part of the Finding Fit journey. There's so many things out there that come into our lives that we never anticipate or expect. And that's why I put the Will to Survive chapter in the first one is, look within yourself and think, what are you going to do when things happen that you don't think are going to happen? And who are you going to be, and who are you going to become? And the amazing thing is that we can become a beautiful, beautiful people. And so I found myself in Africa, climbing Kilimanjaro, and it just being a beautiful experience, because the people in Africa have time as a valued resource. And I heard so much singing and joy when they didn't have physical possessions like we have. In fact, I saw people climbing that mountain, porters, to get that job to make that little bit of money with cotton straps that were strapped, tire treads that were strapped on it, and they were using them as shoes. And I saw them with backpacks that they had handmade, and a baby blanket that they got from a missionary barrel because they were required to have shoes, blanket, hat, gloves. And so EPA and a few people have started a program called To Return, where they provide, they can check out jackets and shirts and shoes and stuff like that at the bottom when they go out. Oh, so it is neat to just watch how people help each other and help themselves. And I hope in the stories in my book that helping other people help themselves helps you in such a bigger way. I had someone say, why would you give so much to those inner city Mexican boys? It's taking money away from you. It's didn't. No, it wasn't. They don't even realize that the giver really is the gifter in those situations. So I hope that I'm trying not to give you the stories. I'm trying to get you into the stories so that you're willing to read them in each chapter in itself. Yeah. So
great. Our guest today, Caren Ware, website carenwareevents.com, and her book is Finding Fit. In the book, you talk about finding yourself, and you also talk about a special place, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Talk about why Jackson Hole is such a powerful place to you and how you've been able to find yourself there.
Okay, and I'm going to tell you about a bunch of powerful places, because Jackson Hole was a great place to launch for the two things, or three of those remote marathons. Antarctica, I was going to have to be able to know how to handle low temperatures. Jackson Hole in the winter has this thing called an inversion layer, where the heat comes in, and surprisingly, if you go skiing and you go to the top of the 11,000-foot mountains, you're going to be 20 degrees warmer on the passes of the peak than down in the hole. That's why they call it Jackson Hole. And down in compressed, and they can get to minus 35. When everyone was hunkering in, and it was the inversion layer, I would go out. And so I would make it in the newspaper as, oh, there's that runner chick. There's that crazy runner chick. What is she doing? And experiment with, what was going to save me. What helped me be one of the 66 that finished that marathon that year, of the 99 that went, was the Jackson Hole locals that snowboard. When it got that cold, they would still go on the slopes, and they would have baggies like from the grocery store, those really thin ones that you put your lettuce in and all that stuff, and they look like scarecrows coming out of their hands and their feet. And I go, what are you guys doing? They go, we're vacuum locking our heat in our body against our hands, and then putting our wool stuff on. So just for a joke, I brought those to Antarctica. And when they said that the temperature was going to drop on our race day from -2 to -22, I put those on and looked like a scarecrow, but my hands, I never had to drop out because my hands and feet were solid. Water was not. Water was frozen solid. We went by the Chinese space station on our route, plus the Russian space station, and they were asked to put out our water, or our Gatorade or our drinks or whatever. And when we got there, they're all frozen solid. So was the camelback on all of us. Even though it had the insulation around the neck, it was still so cold that it froze within it. So you could hear it sloshing against your body. But that race actually went to the person that could handle dehydration the longest, more so than Kilimanjaro, which was at the base. The amazing thing about Africa and Kilimanjaro is that you start at almost the Sahara. You start in the middle of the equator at that heat level, and then you start going up. Almost the world this way is this way. Kilimanjaro is all the layers. It goes through a alpine layer, and it goes through a jungle layer, and it goes, and it goes higher and higher until it gets to almost an Antarctica or Arctic layer on its summit. So amazing experience there. And because of the confidence and the experience I had climbing that mountain at almost 20,000 feet, it was not easy. It was tough. You'll read about situations with some of the other runners that I was able to help rescue another female runner, but also having to have EPA and another runner help rescue me when I panicked, started breathing at that high altitude. So I got an email from Sherpas in the Himalayas and said, did you know that we have the Everest Marathon? You would be the voice. We read about, things that you've written, and you would be the voice who would come here and enjoy and love our villages and our culture and be able to acclimatize and, handle that. And that became an amazingly epic experience. And so I also have Sudhip and those villages that I've actually gone back to and brought, supplies to, and our races help support. And so there's a world out there, everybody. And there's cultures wrapped around a whole bunch of different people, and we can actively take our lives and the broken pieces and the hardships of it, and then link them together with other people.
So Kilimanjaro, and then you did Everest, and then you did Antarctica. And so I just want to ask real quick, and we're running out of time, and I got so much more to ask you. So let's go real quick and short. How do you actually do 26 miles in sub-freezing weather? How do you do it? Is it a mental thing, or what's the strategy? How do you work that and make it happen?
So I think that, every environment was the reason I pitted myself in the 7 continents and the 7 different remote places, that every environment is different, and it lets you know that you're the same person in every different environment. And so that you can take yourself and you can handle all kinds of life situations that are different in, different places. And so it's hard to even put an allegory to how do you run them. You just go do it. You just go do it. And I think because you in order to do a marathon, it pretty much is a 3 to 4 month formula of getting your body used to running that long, that far. And you do short runs and a long run. And then you do, more short runs and a longer run. And then you do a little longer of your short runs and a longer run. And you kind of build up the layers so that your body is ready to handle, mark, set, go. And then you're able to handle, those environments and stuff. Someone told me one time, with weather, you're only as cold as your clothing. And so you also learn in what attire to wear and what attire not to wear, when you get in, hotter situations.
Wow, love it, love it. Well, one thing that I admire about you is this is not about you. This is not about your journey. This is about you giving back to the world, you making a difference, you embracing cultures, you running and putting on these races to raise money. I mean, it's all about that you have lived a life of service, loving humanity. And I want to go back to the Belmont boys. You got your two children, birth children, graduated from college. Tell us the story of the inner city boys in LA. I think there were 5 of them. Talk about how that started, and then tell us that story. And then we're going to finish up asking you a bunch of advice about different things in life.
Okay, and I'm gonna start. I'll tell you about the Belmont Boys, and I want to just put a real big plug on the book. I have so many people that read it that are not runners, and it is not written. I'm telling people I'm not trying to sell a book. I'm gifting a story, and it's written to just take people through life. Life stories, amazing life stories of getting out of college, pitting myself against fears of heights and fear of being underwater. There's a great chapter in there called "The Fear is a Liar," and all those things. And I just want you to flow through those and then see what life became when I went after it with gusto to show my inner city boys that you can set goals and that you can accomplish them. For them, they never thought that they could get into colleges or graduate from college, and so they were helping me do odd jobs, and we were raking leaves, and we were kidding around, and they said, "Oh, hey, it's funny, Caren, you're doing Mexican work. We're doing Mexican work." And I said, every culture has jobs that they have to do, even climbing or porting. The porters in the Himalayas that go to Africa. But you also have aspirations and ways to get out of them. And so I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And one of the guys goes, "I want to run for Concordia University in Orange County. And I really like the coach." And I said, "Well, then call him." "Oh, no, I can't do that." So on the hillside, I actually dialed the phone and put the phone to his ear, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "You're going to talk to the coach and tell him that you're going to be running state finals next week and ask him to come watch you." so he talked to him for a few minutes, and then he handed me the phone, and I put the phone back to him and made him invite that coach. And that coach did come, and he ended up getting a full ride scholarship to Concordia University. But I met them when I told you
Which would have never
programmed
happened had you not made that phone call. Wow.
Yes. And so I just kept, what I would do with them too is I would take them to races, and then I would pull over at parks and say, get out and let's play soccer. And they go, and show them that there's boundaries that we've all put on ourselves, but the boundaries are invisible. We can walk over them. The beaches are free. The parks are free. And you'll see a lot in this book, especially in the chapters in Africa, even up in Africa, in Alaska. I spent time in Alaska, and the Indians had kind of the Native Indians, their set villages, and the Mennonites had their set villages, and we chose just to walk right through those lines, and that brought everyone together. And so that's what I taught my boys to do, and they're all college graduates, and
Spectacular. Amazing.
the world, and it opened the whole world to them.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to ask for some bits of advice. Then we're going to plug your website, let people know how to get a hold of you, order your copy of your book. I want to ask you this question. I'm a lover of Labrador retrievers. I've had, I think this is the 8th one that I've had in my 55 years. But just real quick, short, quick, 30-second answers. What have dogs meant to you?
So you're going to find in the story A Will to Survive. That's Dusty. He was a champion dog, amazing champion dog. Haven't had anyone tell me that they have not been able to read that chapter without it bringing tears. It just, I wrote it in a way to evoke emotion about ourselves and our relationship with our dog. Then I have a chapter in there, what pets, sports, and children can teach you. And I think in the background right here, you can see a black and a white dog, and that actually is Tar and Dusty. And you'll see their personalities and what they taught us, because those two dogs were so very, very different. One was a non-runner, non-swimmer, almost a Newfoundland type attitude, breed. And the other one was this hyperactive, ended up being a champion dock jumper dog. And yeah, so anyway, that's I just, I love dogs in our life because they also are additives, just like sports.
Very good. What is your best advice on relationships, on love, on marriage?
So I have what I did with the book, and I think the suggestion from you of all things, Patrick, was I wanted the book to be personal for people. And so at the end of the Africa chapter, there's your life as a Serengeti. And I actually put a worksheet in there for you to take the time to look at your life, and, who are the beasts in your life? Who are the animals? It was so intriguing to me in the Serengeti, those millions and millions of animals that migrate, and the zebras migrate with the wildebeest. And the zebras have, let me get this right, the zebras have good smell, not good eyesight, and the wildebeest have good smell but no eyesight. So they play off each other. And if one starts sniffing the air, then the zebras start looking at them and start looking for the lions, and that's how they travel across. And so the advice I have is, and I think isn't it Steve Jobs said it, that he who goes alone goes fastest, but he who goes together goes further. And life can just be furthered, I think, if we link up and we share each other's lives and our hopes and our hearts and everything. I ended the book with a heart-shaped rock, and I ended up in Patagonia, the very tip of South America, because that's where they were handing out the 7-continent marathon medals. And I had won them I had finished them all, and I wanted to go down there. And I ran the half marathon, and the wind kicked up, and you'll see that wind was an issue for me. It was a very big issue for me on the top of Kilimanjaro. But I had mastered that, and I'd mastered a lot of things. And what I realized is that our heart is our best and biggest muscle, and that in all this fitness and training, it was really training me on being a better person, or being the person that I am. And so my passion is to put this book out there and have people just starting at putting additives in their life, add activity, add outdoors, add helping other people, and see what your life adds up to.
I love it. Best parenting advice. You've got your own 2 children, and then you have the other 5. So what advice can you give?
I think what I just told you with this, see, I have a black and I have a yellow dog. Best parenting advice is to parent, to guide ourselves, to take care of ourselves first, like in the airplane situation, put your mask on first. Make sure that you are healthy and happy and vibrant and whatever, and that's going to be the best example that you give to your kids, but also to just allow differences. I have a chapter in there. I got a PR. I got a good time. He had a good time. And it's about running with my husband, who is amiable and really wasn't competitive. And the marathon didn't mean anything to him. And we went and did the Paris Marathon together. And I ran it in with the crowd, and I ended up getting a PR time. And he came in the back of the pack. We both had medals, but we both did it both different styles, different ways. So my best parenting advice is allow the differences, not just in your children, in the world, in each other, in situations, and almost love the differences. It makes life interesting.
I love it. I had a good time in terms of, short hours and minutes for PR records, but he had a good time enjoying the race. Very great advice. All right, last question on this is, so many of us are busy, working our businesses, paying bills, doing chores, keeping up a household. My thing is biking and hiking and that, but what advice do you have people that want to start running? They want to become fit. Maybe they're out of shape, overweight. How can you encourage people to get outdoors, to get active? What's the best method of nudging those people to do that?
I think the same way I wrote the book. I wrote the book in capsulized chapters. So don't get intimidated when you pick it up, and it's a big, thick book with I think there's 49 chapters in there. You can take one chapter and then dwell on it, and then put it aside and take another chapter. Same advice I have for activity. You don't have to consume your life with it. You can do it in little bits and pieces. You can do it 2 days a week. You can do it 3 days a week. Just start doing something. Find what makes you enjoy. Go back to I have so many people say, well, I used to do that. I used to do that. I love doing that in junior high school. That's why adult sports are so rampant. That's why we do age graded marathons and age graded running. I have 85 to 89-year-olds and 90+-year-old age divisions, and they said they're just as competitive in their heart as they were when they were 19, and so they pit themselves against only their age group. So get out there and pit yourself against something. Pick something, add it to your life, find out how to fit it in, and just start doing it. And the thing with running is, people say, I don't like running, because most people just jump out there and try to run a full 5K without putting little increments in. You gotta just do around the block, a little further. It's layering. I call it layering. You have to give it some time and let your body adjust to it. Our bodies are amazing. They adjust really fast, and they do adjust, but they don't just like crash and burn. So, just take your time doing it and enjoy the process, because everyone I talk to, it's not the medal that matters. It's what it took to get the medal that matters.
Okay, best travel advice, and how has the culture of the world shaped you?
Best travel advice is to get out there and do it, and to pick a place to go. And if you're going to go there, don't bucket list it as seeing the sights, or have it be a personal vendetta as much as find little niche things in the culture. Find some people to meet, find some reason to be there. What's around there? Does it have a monastery? Does it have a village? So my best travel advice is to get out and go. And then during COVID, we couldn't get out and go. But look what we designed. We designed what we're doing right now. We designed Zoom so that you can connect. Ep is on here. Ep is from a village in Africa. Sudip wanted to be on here. He didn't know how to get on here. He's calling me on the other phone. Sudip's in the Himalayas in the village. It's pretty amazing. You don't have to spend the money to go. You can go in heart by just reaching out, in all kinds of different ways, and learn about different places without even being there. Plus, we are so diverse in this world. I promise, if you go to a running club that has walking also, and if you're not a runner, you're going to meet people, and you're going to meet people from all over the place.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay, I want to go back to Antarctica before we finish. They put you on an iceberg and said, we're going to come back to get you. How long were you stranded on that iceberg all by yourself at the bottom of the world? And did you have anxiety, panic, fear?
So that's the chapter.
What did you learn from that?
That's a chapter in the book called Myself Went With Me. And they made an announcement. They made two announcements on the boat. And one of them was, does anyone want to do the polar plunge? They had a salt, it was a, what do you call it? A science expedition boat. And they had a testing pool on the deck. And I and a few people said, oh, we're going to do it because when you plunge in and get out, then you ice freeze, take a quick picture, and then you run for the sauna. As I was running for the sauna, the other person splashed and it went up on the deck and it turned an instant ice. And I slid across it in a bikini because, you know what? I came from Maui. I came from your island and timing that race right before I went to Antarctica. And I actually had a situation where the plane was delayed and I landed in San Diego. And I got to the long-term parking. And if you know San Diego, they have a no-fly zone from midnight to 7 in the morning. The long-term parking was closed and my car was inside it. And I had to fly out of LAX in Los Angeles to get to South America to get in Antarctica. So see the dilemma I was in. I almost missed the flight. And if I missed the flight, I missed the boat. You miss the boat, you can hire a helicopter for one day to drop you off there for $5,000. And then you miss the 4 or 5 years you've been waiting for the Antarctica trip. So feel that getting to Antarctica for travel. But so I had this bikini. I was probably the only one on the ship that had one. And I had sundresses on that Antarctica thing. And as I ran, I hit that ice and slipped. Well, it's a steel-hulled ship, so that can crack through the ice down there for a reason. And smacked my head on the deck. First time in my life, knocked myself out in Antarctica in a bikini, and I had to go to the ship's doctor and what. So I had a reputation on that boat. Then they announced the next day, would anyone want to go on an iceberg and be left out in Antarctica solo? No one raised their hand except me. So a Zodiac took me out there, and that's where all the penguins are and all that stuff. And I thought, wow, if you're left on an iceberg out here by yourself, you have what, 12 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours. And so you have to read that chapter of Myself Went With Me, because in that moment, it was a feeling of, I can't survive out here by myself if someone else doesn't come out and rescue me or bring me back. And also, I've been running and trying to find and racing probably away from myself, trying to get away from myself, take a vacation from myself. And you know what? You go everywhere you go. And there was a really aha moment there that you better be your own best friend and you better enjoy who you are, because yourself goes with you. And so, no, it actually was a very profound and very calming thing. The neat thing about being down in Antarctica is you're at this end of the earth. You have almost a 3-hour sunset. The hues are amazing. It's almost like living in an avatar situation. Plus, it's frozen, so there's no bacteria, so your bodies feel great because there's nothing that you're fighting for allergies and all that stuff. And it was a really neat experience to watch how well adjusted animals are there that live there. Everything's well fed. The penguins, the seals, it's an amazing ecosystem, and it showed me that we are great visitors on this earth in some places, and we need to respect where we are and who we are with, and we need to enjoy the person that's inside us that goes everywhere we go.
So how long were you on? How long were you on the iceberg by yourself?
Only 2 hours.
Only 2 hours. I think about 20 minutes would be good for me. So
yeah, but that sound of that Zodiac going and disappearing was, oh, how are they going to find me in all these places? How do they know? Wait, I should have done my homework a little better. Are they sure? Did they really put me on this island because I jabbered too much? Or,
very
seriously.
good. Okay, our book is Finding Fit, Caren Ware. And carenwareevents.com is your website. Is that the best place for people to purchase a copy of the book? carenwareevents.com?
Finding Fit by carenware.com. Right now it's available on Amazon. I have a great couple that work on my websites, and we're just now offering it. It's everybody, this is fresh off the press. So this is just getting out there. That's why you hear me him and hawing a little bit. And this is my first podcast, so thank you for being patient through it. But I just finished doing the audio for Audible because a lot of runners like to listen, and that's going to be released June 15th. And as Patrick just coached me, I'm going to offer it for sale on my website so that you can get signed copies of the book. And so anyway, go read it. If you go to my website, findingfit.com, and you hit buy, you don't have to buy it necessarily, but just go all the way down to the lower corner. Amazon likes their little algorithms. If you do buy it, make sure you put the 5-star review. But it offers the first 5 chapters free, so that you can come through it. And then you also on carenwareevents.com, there's a contact me. I do go speak at corporate gigs. I have leadership games and training. If you look at my bio background, we do everything in recreation. And I have media for the stories and all that kind of stuff, coming together. So that's ways to get me. I'm going to give you my email address because that's the best way to get a hold of me. Remember Caren with the C. Caren with the C. Let's go this way. Caren with the C, C-A-R-E-N, last name Ware, for my name. And go watch the YouTube channel. I put some YouTube stuff out there because a lot of people like to watch. And on findingfit.com, there is a story, my story. So that gives you a little preface and a prelude into the book Finding Fit. You can watch that. But the best way to get a hold of me is email. And it's Caren with the C, fast, F-A-S-T, track, T-R-A-C-K, carenfasttrack. So that's Caren with the C and 2 T's. And I'm still at AOL.com. And the reason I'm still there is that there's so many of you guys around the world that have already gotten to know me, and I have all those contacts embedded there. So it is carenfasttrack at AOL.com. And
very
please
good.
get a hold of me.
If someone wants to contact you for speaking or for coaching, they can just go to carenfasttrack at AOL.com. Okay, so finally we got to wrap this up, and then we're going to take a group photo and do a quick Q&A. I want to ask, this show is called the Patrick and Mary Unstoppable Author Interview Series, named after our producer, Mary Unstoppable West. That's her nickname. So I want to ask you, one sentence or less, how does Caren Ware define the word unstoppable?
Okay, that's my whole book. My whole book, Finding Fit, is, be unstoppable. There's chapters in there where it's called the middle of nowhere. I ended up with a truck and trailer trying to get to Jackson Hole. I just had to go through Yosemite. The little town, the motels were full, and the 2 little motels are in Lee Vining. Highway Patrol said you can't spend the night here, so I just drove out in the middle of the dark. And then all of a sudden I could tell in my trance of driving that the tires were not on pavement anymore. And somehow I ended up in those scenes in the salt beds. And when the sun rose, I was in the middle of nowhere. And they actually say that Nevada is like our Australian outback. And you also know that I ran in the Australian outback with the Aborigines. So the unstoppable thing is, don't let anything stop you, because in the going, you're gonna get somewhere, even if it's in the middle of nowhere, and you're gonna learn something from that. And what you're gonna learn is how to retrace your steps. make a different turn, instead of a right, make a left, and learn from those things. And so the worst thing to do is to never go for it. So that's why this is so cool. And it's a pleasure to meet Mary, and feel that unstoppable energy in her. And we know that that's in you, Patrick. Oh my gosh. If anyone knows Patrick, he is on it, and he is energy, and he makes things happen.
Very good. Well, this has been fantastic. I encourage all you to go to carenwareevents.com. Again, carenwareevents.com, findingfit.com, carenfasttrack at AOL.com. Thank you so much.